Edward, thank you for such a strong entry and for putting so much thought into how you're scoring things. I think you can probably tell right away that there are certain things that probably don't work as well as you felt that they would, and you want to talk about them. So, the first thing I would say is it's it's a probability that the glockenspiel, the celesta is not going to sound as full as you want it to be in certain places. Like, for instance, right here you have it marked to mezzo forte, and you're trying to balance it and have it come out stronger. But as I've mentioned in a few other evaluations so far, the celesta really has kind of a mezzo piano limit to its range. So it doesn't actually get much quieter than that or much louder than that. There are definitely nuances that you can play using the very limited range of dynamics that a celesta has, but really to expect it to play mezzo forte crescendo compared to the rest of the orchestra is probably way too optimistic. On the other hand, the harp could probably play a lot louder. The harp can have a range that goes up to mezzo forte compared to the rest of the orchestra. So it's just a matter of prioritizing what you think is going to come through here, right? So if you really were just more interested in this top line being nice and loud and standing out, then really it would be better just to score this on glockenspiel, where it would be heard very clearly. Now, of course, as you could hear right in here, the harp and celesta were kind of invisible, right? And I'll have some more to say about it on the next screen, but I would just say, like, don't even bother scoring it where you can't hear it. The way you've got everything laid out, it really is a case of the top voice here being going no higher than a concert F sharp. Okay, so if you wanted this to stand out, you should have scored it like another octave higher, even, right? Because the way it is an octave above this F sharp, but the overtones of the rest of the music is just killing it, right? So I would say just writing everything an octave higher even, right? Would have that stand out much clearer. And also the same thing with the harp, right? The harp is just not going to be audible at all with the competition. Anything with horns, mezzo forte, in the same kind of scoring is going to blot out the harp. Okay, so those were the two immediate concerns that I had with this. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the beginning and just talk about the scoring. I think it's pretty strong. Now here, I would say it doesn't matter that the first horn is this far away from the fourth horn. It is really better for you to score this as 1 and 2, right, on the same staff. Yes, I know later on you're going to have the fourth take over that, and it just really, you're thinking about having everybody stick to their note, right? And it is possible with good horn players. However, what's even better is if the horn players are seat partners, right? They're 1 and 2 sitting next to each other, and they can really finely control their intonation. And rather than being 4 seats apart, like the first and the fourth. So way better to have this as 1 and 2. And then here you can give that note to the fourth, and the fourth will be listening to the second, and then they will just imitate their intonation exactly, right? And the rest of this is fine. It's all scored very nicely. Okay, so that's one thing. Now here I would say the harp, if you want this to come through against pizzicato, right? The pizzicato immediately kills whatever's going on in the harp, right? So higher pitches or louder pitches, but like louder, like it's like, say you've got pizzicato here and you've got the harp covering the same notes. The only way I mean, you could mark it up to mezzo forte, but you still get a pizzicato sound because the carrying power of all those strings is way higher than the harpist, even if the harpist is playing loudly, right? So there are many examples of harp doubling pizzicato, even in Ravel, right? And it just never really does anything. I mean, it might give the pizzicato a slightly longer sustain, but then the nose is sort of cut off of the tone. So, it's just I don't know if the trade-off is worth it unless you are scoring like in a more chamber-like situation. Then we got bassoons. That's all great. So the bassoons plus the horns, that's really lovely. And the main thrust here is first oboe plus first clarinet, and then tracking at an octave below, we've got the second clarinet. So that's a cool idea. So just keeping in mind, you've got a slightly ameliorating effect of the oboe doubling with the clarinet, but you also have the sort of piquancy of the oboe, of the clarinets in octaves, right? That creates a kind of an edgy tone, right? I'm not going to say unpleasant, but just there's something slightly harsh about the overtones above that. So it's not the most placid kind of sound. Now, if you actually had like if you just had low clarinet, like if you had an octave of oboe on top and clarinet on the bottom without the doubling above, or if you had the oboe doubling flute and then clarinet below, then that would have less of that harsh overtone. So here you're doubling up the the English horn to the lower octave, and that's actually pretty good. That's a pretty good combination. So it's like oboe family in octaves, clarinets in octaves. And then we go ahead and sort of climb through the wind section. And that's all fairly strong, okay? You don't overdo it in terms of range, and that's really important. There's been a few who sent like the bassoon way high, or the bass clarinet very high, or even the oboes very high. So this is a good compromise. This ends up with a really nice tone, especially like if you could get this celesta to speak up there, right? Then that would be cool. So, but like there's no way to do that at mezzo forte, right? So here, like if you're going piano crescendo, the the players are going to assume that is the dynamic right in here, right? And you've marked down some elements like the triangle and the timpani and so on, contrabassoon. Okay, but mezzo forte piccolo in its high register is going to just shine out, right? It would be better just to mark this piano, and then you have more of a chance of blending with the celesta. All right. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't mark loud dynamics on celesta. It's sort of a way of expressing to the conductor what you want, but it doesn't mean that it will sound mezzo forte, right? It gives everybody an idea of what you want, but it is not really what is going to happen. So that's why I really recommend, you could leave this the way that it is, but just double this with the glockenspiel, perhaps. Okay, so everything else there works pretty well. And I'm pretty happy with your textural cushion right in there. So now we get to the next idea. Ba-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-dum. Somebody left a comment in one of the on one of the comment pages under one of my YouTube videos saying, "Oh, hey, by now you should realize that wouldn't it be the case that this upper note is a melody note if everybody thinks it's a melody note except for me?" Okay, well, Lili thought it was a melody note very clearly. If you look at the original score, Lili thought that the melody note was D sharp, not F sharp, right? The F sharp is obviously an added voice, and the D sharp in the middle is the continuation of the melody in the way that it is scored in the original score, right? So I'm not saying this because of some weird little pet thing that I have thought of. It is just the way that Lili wrote the music, right? What what makes it kind of complicated is just that, is that like I'm not seeing the melody as written by Lili given too much prominence, right? So like it just sort of comes off as a harmony function that resolves at the end, right? But that's not what it is. It really is the melody. But it's okay. I mean, I'm going to just mention it because I just want to point out what people might have missed. It's not that they did things wrong or anything like that, and it might still work fine. But in this case, I would say it really does need some doubling, right? Because we've got so much emphasis on the F sharp and here on the A sharp, right? But there's very little doubling or support for the da 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 da, right? So anyhow, and then we get into bum 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 bum, which is very cool. We've got so here's another example of by the same logic, like if everybody is scoring this, just adding the piano style slur over the mezzo staccato and then the accent, then that should be right too, right? But it's not. That isn't the way that mezzo staccato works for wind and string instruments. So, but at least in this case, it's really great that that you got this, got the sense that these are two separate voices, and I really appreciate that. But I just in the future, mezzo staccato should have its own slur, right? And that way you can hit this right here with the same breath, right? So because like what you've got right here is, right? But really what you want is like the separate articulation, right? It's just too much in the diaphragm, and it just really robs this downbeat here of any emphasis when you are slurring over from a mezzo staccato, okay? So just keep that in mind. Think like a wind player, and also, it's okay to put an accent here in this bass clarinet note. All right, and I mean especially like when you are dealing with brass, it's best to be really clear about those kinds of articulations. Okay, but all the same, just looking at the scoring, upper winds plus clarinet, and then we've got bass clarinet in its clarino register, then the horns covering some of the lower pitches here. That's kind of cool. And then you have, what's nice here is that you do draw off a bit before you go into the soft response, the echo, right? But still, I feel that this could have been, there could have been just a little bit of a breath before going into that. It's just a minor point, but yeah. Now, bum 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 bum. I've already mentioned that this will be pretty invisible for harp and celeste, and you can even hear that in the mock-up, which is pretty honest as far as that goes. This is really nice. I really love the row of sixths in the trading off or interlocking between the first and second violins. That's a great way to do it. And this can all be played non-divisi, okay? Right here, I would actually write this out as divisi, though. It's just easier when dealing with fourths. It's a fiddly thing it's playable, but it's just kind of funky. So, me as a viola player, I would want this divisi right in here. And then you've got this splitting up in here. So I feel that this is all very nicely handled. It's really good scoring, really decent, nice stuff. And here we get to the second screen, and so just like I've commented on other scores, that really I just wish that I could have continued on with my evaluation, but I have to sort of limit this with with the lower level support. Now, a lot of Brev supporters supplied the entire piece, and what I will do in their case, because a lot of people in that Brev level have actually been supporting for like years and years and years. So I'm going to probably just make a few comments because it's only a few more bars. So I'll make a few comments on just a few additional comments about the bars without going into a massive detail about it. But it's just too much to do for all of the scores that I've got piled up on every Patreon score. Okay, so really, I feel horrible about it. You probably are going to give me a pass, but I just, when people send me a score that has got more than I can, than I agreed to do, I actually feel really bad about not doing it. Just, I hope you understand that, all right? So, all right, so now we get into this. Ba-da-da-dum, and then da-da-dum-bum, ba-da-dum-bum, bum-bum. I feel this is really lovely. This is very much in the period to have one section make an opening statement and then have another section, in this case the strings, respond with a much fuller phrase. That is, I think that Ravel does that a few times, and I think Lili does that a couple of times, and Debussy does that all over the place. He'll like make a statement with brass, and then the strings will react to it, or he'll make a statement with strings, and the brass will react to it. That's more stuff is coming. It's really a shame that I had to put the La Mer score evaluation or score analysis on hold to do this, but it is so much worth it. I so love bringing the community together every year for these challenges. And wow, getting 146 scores. Whew. All right, so just looking at the scoring here, this is all nice. I think you really do need to mark, with the way that this is scored right here, you need to go to two voices to make it clearer, because this is just not clear. You've got to slur across the same note, right? So slurring D to D. So that doesn't quite work, right? This is kind of like piano type scoring. And I would just say in general, the slurs in this passage, while it is really beautiful and effective string scoring, it is really not string bowing, right? So it's like, where do you want the emphasis of the phrase as it sings, right? Bum, 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 bum. I mean, even here, do you really want da, or do you want dun, dun, da, or do you want da, da? You know what I mean? It's unclear, because especially when you've got a different slurring for the lower voice. It almost makes me wonder, you knew that you wanted to do that with the lower voice, but then you didn't do it with the upper voices. Okay, well, all that aside. So now, think about how this top line sings. Do you want da, da, right? Or do you want da, 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 right? Or da, da, da. So to just really have to think about how it's also going to be bowed, right? So bow, so down, up, down, slur, up, down, right? So there's a bunch of different ways of doing this. So, but the way that it is slurred now, this is just all piano phrasing, right? Now here, you do not need to put a slur over or like tenuto staccato with a slur is just too much information. Okay, so tenuto staccato is unga. All right, so it's unga, right? So that is a specific type of articulation. So putting a slur over it, there's slurred staccato, which is right? And then there is portato, which is right? And then there is tenuto staccato, which is dunga, 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 right? And so you have to really decide which one of those you want. When you put a slur over it, you really are confusing the issue. So I would say get rid of the slur if you really want tenuto staccato. If you want mezzo staccato, get rid of the tenuto, but leave the slur. If you want portato, then get rid of the staccato and leave the slur. But don't put a slur under tenuto staccato for the strings. It's just too many things to do. There is kind of a slurred, it's sort of a portato. I've seen this with modern scores. It's kind of like a portato tenuto staccato thingy, and I think that's dumb. In this context. So sorry, I don't mean to be insulting. I apologize, but I think that it doesn't really work with this kind of approach, right? So if that was intentional, then apologies, but I just don't feel that that works. Okay, all right, but especially as you go towards here, working out, like right now you have da da da, you have da, but really, do you want da 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 da, or do you want da da da, or da da? All right, I just don't feel it's worked out when you have this piano type phrasing. This is something I did mention in the guidelines that that like the dynamics and the phrasing of the original did not necessarily have to be in the arrangement. And I think I need to make this one video that I've been thinking of doing for quite a while, which is I think it's common transcription errors. So where I'll talk a little bit more about that. But anyhow, moving on. So, ba da 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 da. So, yeah. Once again, I'm gonna be picky about the, like it's the situation where like you are obviously somebody with some talent here, and you don't need me to pussyfoot around and tell you how great you are. You want me to tell you how you could make your score even better, right? So right here we've got the piano slurring over the wind part. So it's, so that literally you're going to get people breathing like da. So do you really want to rob the downbeat here of emphasis? Right? You're already giving it emphasis with these beautiful gushing, harp and celesta. Which, by the way, will be perfectly loud. You don't even need to mark it forte, right? If this is piano, you could mark this piano crescendo or mezzo piano. It'll come through fine. So, back to the whole idea of slurring. Da, da. Right? Da, da. Right? Wouldn't it be better to slur down rather than da, da, da? Right? How about da, 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 da? Right? Wouldn't that be better? So just kind of thinking about like just the natural flow of a phrase when it's spoken or sung, right? Lili would probably have things worked out quite differently if she were writing this as a vocal piece, right? So you really have to kind of vocalize the phrases and change them around. Okay, really cool though. These low Bs on fourth horn, I would say this is the point. This is the place where you want to double up your horns, right? So soft doubled low horns are a beautiful thing, all right? But a single low horn, I mean, that's not even that low of a note, but it's still low enough where I would want to double it if it were exposed in this way, right? So I would say pair up this in unison with the second horn, and I think you have the exact right sound. And in fact, and then you could just drop it down to pianissimo, and then you have the sense of the pizzicato continuing on, like sustaining longer, right? Because this will supply, like the pizzicato supplies the attack, and the horn, the very soft horn, supplies the sustain. Okay. And then here we're sort of climbing, we're like higher Bs and so on. This is all going to work, but yeah. So here you've got, once again, exposed low Bs, low sounding Bs. But this time they are being accompanied by the double basses. So the fourth horn does not need to be doubled there. But if you were worried about it, you could just add like some pianissimo bassoon in there. Okay. I really liked the build, the way that you orchestrated the builds in here. It was great, and and support from the strings from below is all good. You will end up with a very windy texture here, right? Rather than a stringy one, right? There will be like, I mean, it sounds beautiful on Note Performer, but the honest truth is that really there will be a very high sheen to this passage as it unfolds, but there won't be any silkiness to it, right? It's going to be a very clear, very bright sound. We're in a bright garden, right? Or of a bright garden. But we're not really, like, there isn't any, it's all of those high frequencies are going to have to work very, very well together. Okay? It's going to be sort of radiant, but it isn't going to be tempered. Okay? So that is the cost of not involving the strings on some of the higher pitches, like especially the high melody going way up. Okay, but I mean, it'll still work great. So yeah, I mean, I really like this orchestration. I thought you did a fantastic job, and I think it's something that you could go on and do a little bit of polishing up, fix some of the non-string like phrasing in here, and just see if you can get somebody to read it for you. I think that would be great. Okay, so thank you so much for supporting on Patreon, and look, if I can just, especially somebody like yourself, Edward, who would have some really great insights for other players, I would really appreciate it if you would have a listen to the other scores of your dotted semi-brev companions here in this challenge, and maybe give them a little bit of feedback. If there's something that I fail to mention in my evaluations, like, have a look at their evaluations and see if there's anything you can add, or even just like give them like a positive comment if you really liked what they did. I think that would really be great, because that is part of what I get out of this, is to see the community come together and help each other out, and to get to know each other better. And sometimes, I mean, I've actually seen people who commented on each other's evaluations from a few years ago, and they have like formed friendships and have like, and I think there's even one or two cases where people, like, one person ended up studying with another person, or ended up helping them out on a project or whatever. So I don't really have those ambitions for every single person, but it just would be really great if people really did comment on each other's work, and especially somebody who obviously has something to say with this score. Okay? So thank you so much for your entry, and I'm on a roll today. I got started a little early yesterday, and then I had to give my voice a rest, but I'm feeling great today, so I'm going to see if I can evaluate all of the dotted semi-brev entries today, all 9 of them, and we'll see how that goes. So thanks again, and now I will get on to the next evaluation.